Hi, students. Let's play Watch Me Code. This is going to be one of the most interesting things that you can do in your lives, and that is to watch somebody code. Absolutely fascinating, and here we go. So here's the task. We are given a file of an unknown size. We know that it's got integers in it, but we don't know how many. Our task is, well, we want to read all of that external file data into our program. We want to store it all into an array, but we want to store it into an appropriate array. What does that mean? A right-sized array. We could certainly create an array of 1,000,000 elements and then just pray that that file, that we don't know how many elements are in it, is less than 1,000,000. But that's just simply not good coding. Let's use our coding to figure out how we can go about doing this. So biggest thing here, unknown size, meaning we don't know how many elements there are. But let's say that at our level of coding, we do know that perhaps that they're all ints, okay? So we want to bring them into a right-sized array. So here's the way we will do this. The first thing we'll do is open and count. So we'll open the file and just simply read through it. And as we read through every line, we just increment a counter. Then we can use that counter to create an array. And Replit, this version of C++ with Replit, does allow us to create arrays based on a variable size declarator and not a constant size declarator. The only limitation is that you can't initialize it. You have to then go and manually code it or populate it. So we'll create that array then based on that count. And then we will read the file again, and we'll read that data into the array. So that's basically our pseudocode. Let's remember that pseudocode now, and let's start to code this. So here is a blank REPL. Let's see, let me get some more real estate on the screen so we can maximize. Let's try that code level there. And let's see, we know we will need fstream. And since we know we'll need fstream, let's just go ahead and put that in there now in our declarations area. So we'll need an output file. I'm sorry, an input file. We're going to read all of that stuff into an array. So let's do an input file. Ifstream fin, let's call it input.txt. And then let's be good citizens and close that which we opened, because we're not heathens. We open and close properly. So we've said, all right, input.txt here. Let's go ahead and create that file. And I'm going to just put an unknown number of random numbers in here. I could, of course, code this and populate it, but I'm just going to do the lazy approach here. Okay, let's say that that's enough. And let's, again, suspend belief for just a moment and say that we don't know how many integers were in that file, okay? All right, now we mentioned some pseudocode. Let's go ahead and get that in already. The first was that we were going to open the file and count. The second was we're going to create the array. And then the third is open and read the file again. And then we're going to populate that into the array. So this fin.close will actually have to go up here in this code block, because that is where we will first do it. Now, what's interesting is that since we're going to open the file again, we will need to, and we can't use the same objects. We could just create another variable, ifstream fin2 this time, and we're also going to open input.txt again. And then fin2.close. And yes, they're pointing to the same file, but this is necessary because the first time we open it and then close it, That puts the read head all the way down. We'll need to reset that read head with a new file object. Okay, so here's our setup. Let's do just this first task here, and that's this one right here. Open the file and count the elements. So we're going to need a counter. And there I initialize it to 0. Always initialize it to 0. We'll need an element variable, and this is just what we're going to read from the file every time it's going to go into element. And then we can do this while fin into element counter plus plus. And that's all we need to do here. And then let's do a count here of the number of elements. We'll do counter. And let's run this and see if we get 17 or whatever that was that we were supposed to get. And we got 17 there in our output. A nice, easy, let me move this thing around. Nice, easy 17 here. All right, so that first part is working. And remember that this code here, this while fin element, that's a special extractor feature of file input objects and the while loop. The while loop will extract those elements, and it'll just keep going until it runs out of things to extract. So the beauty of this while loop is that you never have to test for the end of file. It will just figure that out automatically. Now, the next task for us is going to be, well, this right here. Let's create the array. How big do we make the array? Well, we know now how big, right? Come on. There we go. Well, we know now that it's just counter. So let's create an integer array. How about called elements of size counter. All right, and let's just run this, make sure that it compiles. And then we should be ready for the next step. But while we're here in line 18, let me show you that Replit will complain if we try and initialize this array to all zeros. It'll give us the error that a variable size object can't be initialized. And that's just one of the C++ rules with this version of C++. They're not all like that. You go to different compilers and they may have different behavior. This compiler says you can go ahead and create the array. You just can't initialize it. So you'll just have to go through the process somehow of populating those elements. Okay, so now let's do the same thing. Let's read the file again, and this time we will put it right into the array elements. So let's reset our counter. And let's repeat that while loop. And then I showed in the videos exactly how to code data going from the file directly into an array. So we will use the array name elements. And the subscript is just going to be counter. And then the only task to complete here is counter plus plus. When line 24 first executes, it's going to take that element that it extracts with fin and put that in elements sub counter. And counter is 0 to start. So that's going to go in elements sub 0, the first container. Then we increment counter. We do another fin extraction. And this time it'll go to elements sub 1. And that's the next element in the array. But we can tighten our code up even more by doing this. We actually don't need that. We can just increment the counter right there. And what that does is it will return the counter. And as soon as the processor is done with it, it'll then increment it. So this code here will work. Let's try and run it again. And we get no errors. So that's good. So let's try and let's just validate that the data made it in. Let's validate the array. I'm going to use a range-based for loop. I'm not teaching this, but you can glance through it in section 7.4. It's just a quick way of outputting an array when you don't care about the index number. You just care about the elements. And then let's output these elements and see if we get all 17. Oh, something's wrong there. And that is we didn't go through and initialize these elements first. So let's go ahead and take care of that. There we go. Elements sub I now all going to 0. And then now let's read these into the file. And here's a run of our code, and there are the numbers that we get, and they seem to match this input file. So let's take a look again at those 3 steps of pseudocode. One, we created the array in line 19 based on a variable rather than what we normally would initialize an array, and that's using a constant. Then in this second code block, we read the file again, we open it again, and reset the counter. And then we use this special while loop extractor that dumps them all into the array, and then let's close the file. And then this next part is just where we will output the results. Let's validate that we got what we got. And there is our code with how to write an unknown number of elements in an external file into an appropriately sized array. Now, I mentioned before the way that is okay to do it, kinda, is to create an artificially large array and then just keep track of how many elements are in it. So let's kind of code that now, just to kind of show the difference. Matter of fact, let me fork this. We'll make this a demo 2, and we'll change it to where we don't open the file and count any longer, but we will instead count as we go along. So what we'll do is create a constant here, just max size. And we'll have to just make an educated guess here. Based on like history, if this is some business data, what's the average size been for the last quarter? You can make some educated guesses here. I'm going to just say 10,000. There we go. Now, what we'll have to do in this case is, even though we've got a 10,000 element array, we're only going to use a small portion of it. So we need to keep track with a counter. So let's go ahead and create that as well. And every time we read something into the array, we will just still increment the counter. Okay, so let's see. Let's read. This time we will read into the array. And oops, let me tighten that up, see what the deal is. Yep, there it is. Here I need to create the array using the constant we created. And let's go ahead and initialize all of those values to 0, just because we know that that's a good practice, especially when we'll be populating things into them. So let's see, here we will then read into those elements, counter ++. All right, and then let me fix one thing. All right, and here we go. We read the elements into the array here with that very familiar code. And that overwrites the 0 with whatever the value was from the file. Then we close it here, and then here, this time I'm using a regular for loop, and that's so we can get the index, and we can then use that index for the elements array. But look, in the for loop header, I don't go up to max size for the continue clause here. Note that expression, it stops at counter, and counter is just whatever we currently have, the number of elements that we read from the file. And we'll actually have to decrement that by 1 because I see that the last element over here in the output is 0. And that makes sense because the very last thing we do is increment the counter. So let's do this just to offset the very last one, counter minus minus. Then when we run this, we won't get a 0 here at the very end. In other words, it's going to properly keep track of the number of elements. Okay, and there we go. Again, this one created an artificially large array to store these values in, but then kept track of the actual number of values with a counter. And then we just simply output the array. All right, so I hope both of these techniques helped. And then I'll post this code in the same page here below, and please check those out. All right, bye y'all.